it's a simple fact of life that whatever I accomplish and do simply wouldn't happen and wouldn't have happened if not for her support, putting up with me. And by the way, that's a real issue, putting up with me. It's not pashut. Being a loyal support, she gave me up for decades of my life to go and do things. And she did it gladly. She had this misperception of me that I was very chashuv and I should do these things, and she gladly gave me up. Our journey has taken us together, where what we do now is together. She's always been behind the scenes supporting me. And this stage is our children have all left home. So we're together in this. And she's a remarkable woman. And without her, this wouldn't happen. And I wouldn't be here, and we wouldn't be doing this. So I have a deep akar satayv. There's a remarkable hashgacha tonight as well for all of us here. Many of you, I think, I don't know if I should say the story again, but the first time I stood here on a Motzi Shabbos, actually this is early compared to when I spoke last time on Motzi Shabbos, but I said a story that I think many of you remember or know, about a trip of mine to Eretz Yisrael. The story is the story with my daughter and the red dress. I think everyone's heard that story. I don't have to repeat it. I should repeat it? I went to Eretz Yisrael. Our eldest daughter had taken us in a different direction in life. She began her visible external struggles around 14. It was the early 5-year process was very difficult and painful for us all, her more than us. She was in Eretz Yisrael, and I went to visit. We had opened a program for her. She had asked me if I could help her, and so we opened a school, Tikva. We ran it for about 10 years to try and help girls like her. It was her idea. She called me up one day and said, "Tati, you know what I need. Can you open a school?" I thought she was meshuga. I'm going to open from Lakewood a school in Yerushalayim to help girls come back, but she was convinced that I knew what to do and how to do it. And actually, together, she took the leadership to open this school that for the next decade helped hundreds and hundreds of young ladies find their way back. It was her inspiration, it was her idea. So I went to visit her, and I must tell you, in those early days, I was still quite embarrassed about my matzav. It wasn't so public, none of us were. We're talking over 25 years ago, when it started. And about 20 years ago, this story occurred that I went to Eretz Yisrael, and lo and behold, on the plane were two Rosh Yeshivas, one from Lakewood and one from Eretz Yisrael. I knew them both. Very chashuv, young Rosh Yeshivas. And we sat together, Bal Kocha, on the plane. And we talked in learning, and we went together, and I never said a word. I sat with my own sorrows inside. I was literally too embarrassed in those early days to really talk about it. So we went, and we talked. When we got to Eretz Yisrael, we picked up our luggage. The old days, the airport in Lud, you all came out that same one place, and people were waiting there for us. And we got our luggage on our luggage carts, and we pushed through the doors together, all three of us. We came through together, and there standing, as I remember it, she has a different memory of this story, of exactly what she was wearing, but I can tell you what I remember from over 20 years ago, that there was this beautiful, shall I say, not dressed in the most, refined Hasidic fashion. It was a very short red dress, as I remember it. She remembers it was a longer dress. Maybe it wasn't red. It's very interesting how memory does different things to us. For me, it was a short red dress and she was beautiful and young. And I looked and saw this, what I looked to me like Kaprutza standing there. And I looked away, and then my heart said, no, don't look away. This is your daughter. And I looked back, and it was her. And I'm flanked by these two Chashva Rosh Yeshivas that I had not yet had the courage to talk about our struggles. In a moment, I knew what I had to do, and I pushed my cart ahead of them, rushed forward, and I took her in my arms. I gave her a hug and a kiss. I pushed aside the feelings of shame in their eyes that I was projecting into them, back to me. I pushed it aside. I held her. I just imagined what it must have looked like to anyone else. But I ignored it, and we went, and we got our car rental, and we went to Yerushalayim. I had a heavy heart from being exposed. These were the early days, Rabbi Say. We didn't talk about it. No one talked about it. And I felt the shame. I felt the embarrassment. Especially, we'd sat a whole plane flight. I never mentioned any of my tzaras. And here, this thing happened. This was a Thursday. Shabbos morning, I went to shul. I was in Mattersdorf. I was walking around the corner to Torah Or. And lo and behold, the Eretz Yisrael Dikar Rosh Yeshiva is on my side of the street walking towards me as I'm walking around to Shachris that morning. And I felt like, again. I wanted to run across the street. I wanted to hide, I'll be honest. And then I caught myself, said, Russell, just grow up. Deal with this. What's wrong with you? I pulled myself together, and I proceeded forward, and we stopped and faced each other. And this Rosh Yeshiva put his arms around me and gave me a hug, which I appreciated. And then he started crying, which I deeply appreciated. And then his bechi turned into this deep, sobbing cry. And I realized I was holding a crying man. He was bawling in my arms. And when he finished and he pulled himself together, Kadosh Baruch Hu gave me such a gift, because he pulled himself together and he looked at me and he said, Rabbi Shimon, he said, perhaps if I had your strength, maybe my son might come back. It was so amazing that here, his experience was the exact opposite. If I had your strength, he said to me, maybe my son would come back to me. We think in our embarrassment and shame, we're so lost, but we know the truth, Rabbi Say. These are our children, and they deserve our love, and that we would deprive them of their birthright because of our shame. There's a fascinating ending to this story that I've never shared before, that I'll share now. I was there for a week, and it was the first time. This was 20 years ago. This was 20 years ago, almost exactly 20 years ago. And at the end of that week, I flew back, and I had, for the first time, a hergish. After 5 years, there was some movement. She was changing. There was something happening. We were connecting, and there was movement. It was the first time I felt it. And I felt just episphos, abyssal movement. And on that plane, on the way back, I couldn't sleep the whole night. I cried the entire way home. I couldn't catch myself. And I wrote a poem on that plane that night. And I'd like to share that poem with you now. The title of the poem is Dare I Hope. I'm sorry if some of the language, I grew up in England, I was educated, so some of the English is going to be for the Chassidish Olim, you'll forgive me, but I'm sure someone in your Daled Amos will translate and teach it in Yiddish. You know, I once spoke, one time, the first time I ever spoke to a Chassidish Olim, it was in Montreal. I gave a shiur in Square in Montreal. Diane Vosner was sitting next to me. I gave the shiur and I stopped in the middle. I said, I see the Olam doesn't like what I'm saying. And they said, no. He said, they're enjoying it. I said, it's not possible. He said, everyone looks so upset. He said, they're not upset. They're trying to work out what you're saying. Dare I hope? Dare I hope to peek beyond the curtain? I say this for all of us. This is our poem, Rabbi say. This is our poem. I give it up. This is not mine anymore. This is ours. Dare I hope to peek beyond the curtain, to allow what seemed at times to be impossible to filter in and embrace me. Oh, how seductive is that ethereal need, tantalizing and terrifying. Oddly, acceptance of the worst appears to comfort more, and yet the faint glimmer of hope never seemed to fade. 5 long years, upward struggle, fear of death and dying, both draining beyond and empowering and defining. A soul in search of truth, lost in a system of betrayal that failed to be reflective of inner glory. I too no longer who I was, enriched, humbled, and wiser, compelled by the tears of pain and loss that burst from within my uncomprehending soul, to make sense out of chaos, to see the buds of Genesis being laid on unplowed soil. And as the first rays of a supernatural dawn tentatively shed light where before there was just darkness of confusion, I offer up a prayer and shed a new tear of humble thanks to a God whose plan I failed to grasp was meticulously the greatest gift of all. We have a very, very, very special guest tonight here who really deserves this award more than I. In the far table in the corner sits our daughter Liba, who's now 40. A beautiful person, a mother of 3 children, a deep, smart, inspiring human being. Liba, I speak to you. You were our firstborn, Liba, and you made us into parents. But you didn't stop there, because over the years, you've given birth to us, and you made us into true parents. Don't stop, honey. Don't stop. We are indebted to you for the richness you've given us. As I've said many times, you gave me more than you ever took from me. And you gave us gifts that I now share. You can see in front of you the impact of the gifts you gave us. And everyone in this room is makatov to you. I want to share a few thoughts, if that's okay. Is that okay? Can I share a few thoughts? I know what the program is, but I'd like to. Is that all right? I don't know about anyone else, but I have a favorite pasuk in the Torah. Anyone else have a favorite pasuk? I have a favorite pasuk. When the Kriyas HaTorah comes to this pasuk, I dance. This is my pasuk. The pasuk tells us in Shmos Lamed Gimel Yud Gimel, Hodieni no es darkecha. Moshe Rabbeinu asks Rabbeinu Shalom, Hodienu no es darkecha. Please show me your ways. The Gemara in Brachos tells us that he's referring to the question of tzaddik v'ra lo, rasha v'tov lo. And I can tell you there's one Yid, that's me, who every year, when we lay in this pasuk, I leap, my heart leaps. Because I say to myself, if Moshe Rabbeinu didn't understand the Godel of Nevi'im, if he didn't understand tzaddik v'raloi, rasha v'tovloi, so I should. To me, it's the gresta chizuk. And the Rebbeinu Shem doesn't tell him. He says, I can't show you. It cannot be revealed. Is there a greater gift for us than knowing that if Moshe Rabbeinu didn't chab, I should? It's a loz up with all the questions. Ein ra yored min hashamayim. But we can't see it. It's not to be seen in this world. And the philosophers will explain why. We'll leave it to them. That's not the point. The point is for us to embrace when we feel like why and how and all these questions that come from the Eitzar, from the Sitra Achya, they come from this place of depression and sadness. Loz apraboisai. The Sefer Adea, the Leshem, it's not for me to even attempt to explain in full what he's saying, but the tzura of what he's explaining, I'm willing to describe. That's it. Just describe. And the tzura, as he explains it, he talks about the nitzas hakadusha. When the Kadosh Baruch Hu created the world, there were sparks of holiness. The Kadosh Baruch Hu sent down to this world. I may need it yet. Yeah. He sent these sparks of kedusha down to the world, and they go to everywhere in the world. And every neshama, every single one, has its unique job to klaibois, to find these nitzas, these sparks of kedusha. It's the neshama's job. They're part of a chelik of the neshama. They're a chelik of who we are. And in our journey through this world, we have to find these sparks. And he gives a mashal. He actually says just a few words, but it's a mashal, which I'd like to just broaden with a little poetic license, but it's his mashal. And the mashal is to a palace. And this palace has rooms above the ground, and it has the necessary systems to run the palace below the ground. The water and the bathrooms and everything drains into the sewers. It says above ground, there are nitzas everywhere. And there are nitzas downstairs too. They go everywhere. He says some people, they get to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the palace in the upstairs rooms, in the banquet rooms, in the bedrooms, the living rooms, the beautiful furniture, beautiful upholstery. Everyone dresses so refined and nice. A beautiful, like this. Look at the gorgeous place here. A beautiful palace. And some people, they work there. And they get to dress refined and have their hair done beautifully. And their nails polished. And they work in the palace upstairs. Some people have to work downstairs. They have to keep the sewer system operating. Because if it doesn't operate properly, the truth is, which is more chashuv to the functioning of the palace? If one of the rooms or a piece of furniture gets broken, you can still function. But if the sewer system goes off, the whole place stops functioning, has no use. And the people downstairs, they have to go into very dark places. They have to have exposure to things that they never dreamt they want, and no one in their right mind would want. But in that place, there's nitzitz too, there's sparks of holiness, of kedusha, and someone has to go down and get them. And the chayra in the mashal, they're more chashuv. Downstairs is more chashuv to the palace than upstairs. Says the Leshem, "Umizeh tire kama tzarich ha'odom lizah ma'od." From this you can see how much a person has to be cautious and careful, extremely careful. Milaha ha'acha midoisav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to question Hashem's ways. Ulisraim chas v'shalom al chelkoi, and to chas v'shalom doubt his position, his place in this world, what he's going through and dealing with. Chas v'shalom, to doubt it or question it. Al chelkoim kotonim dalhu, whether his portion seems to be difficult, low, challenging. Or kisharoy ba'atzmai, or he looks at himself, she'enu matzlich chas v'shalom b'cheftzei shamayim. He looks at himself and he wants only to be close to Rabbeinu Shalom, only to serve Hashem in the way he decides he wants to. Chas v'shalom, to question the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided for us to serve. Ki ein adam yodea al eze melacha shulach ba'olamai. Not one of us knows which melacha we were sent down here to do. The Gemara in Rosh Hashanah Kaf Aleph, Gemara says, Nun sharei bina ba'olam, v'kulam nasnu l'Moshe chutz mi'echad. There were 50 sharei bina, gates of knowledge, of understanding of this world and how it works and why it works. V'kulam nasnu l'Moshe chutz mi'echad. They were all given to Moshe except one. The Moranayim in Parshas Kedoshim fragged an obvious question. Fragged the Moranayim, the Lashon is wrong. It seems to be off in the Gemara. Chamishim shari bina nivru ba'olam. There were 50 shari bina created in the world. Kulam nasnu l'Moshe chutz mi'echad. It would be more precise. The 49 were given to Moshe Rabbeinu. What's the pshat that 50 were given except for one? Just say straight. 49 were given to Moshe Rabbeinu. What's pshat? The Moranayim explains Moiridik. He brings a Rishon, the Bechinas Olam. There's a Rishon, the time of the Rambam, and he quotes something so important from the Bechinas Olam, so important for all of us. He says these words, Tachlis hayediyah asher lo teda. He means like this. The 50th shar of Bina, this gate of knowledge, of understanding Hashem, talks about Atzmi Usai Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the nature of Hashem himself. And this can't be known. It's impossible to know. So it could have Taka said, 49 gates. This one you can't know. But he says the Bechinas Olam, something so important and relevant to us. Azog Tachlis Hayediyah Asher Lo Teda. The Tachlis of Yediyah, of knowing Hashem, is to know that you don't know. And this Moshe Rabbeinu knew. He knew that he couldn't know. Azai, he was given 50 chutz mi'echad, because one he couldn't know, but he knew he couldn't know it, so he was given all 50. Azai, in every shar of Bina is a musuk of tachlis hayediyah asher lo teda. That the tachlis of every one of us is to know there are certain things you can't know. And if you can accept that, and you can let go of questioning why Hashem put us here, why He gave me these nisyonos, it may take you years. Last year I spoke about a story with my grandmother. I'm not going to go through the story again, but it took 55 years to understand the story of how she died and why she died until I got a Gili 55 years later. Tachlis hayediyah asher lo teda. In the teeth of understanding Hashem is to realize you're not going to understand, so laws up. It's a Yetzer Hara. It's getting in the way. And it stops you loving your kids the way you need to love your children. You let go. This is in everything we do. Let go of that question. I hear it asked all the time. Let it go. And understand that that's actually tachlis hayediyah, is to let it go. And tell him, I'll finish with this thought. David HaMelech says, Rabus Raos Tzadik Umikulam Yatzileni Hashem. I don't know, Rabbi Sai, about you. I thought about this so many times. Rabus Raos Tzadik Umikulam, really? Umikulam Yatzileni Hashem? Hashem saved us from them all? I see Tzadikim, find a company sitting right here, who see many Raos, and they don't feel they were saved from them. So how does the pasuk say, Rabus Raos Sadik Umikulam Yatzileni Hashem? So I'd like to suggest, if you don't mind, a bissel a chassidish avot. I think I'm in the right company for this. Am I right? I think so. So I'd like to suggest a way of understanding that line that worked for me and has helped me through my life tremendously. And if I may say that the Nisayan that started over 25 years ago, the gift of our eldest daughter, Liba, who took us on a journey and took us to a place that we never in life could have imagined. I'll be honest. I think I was just a nice guy, relatively mediocre therapist. Don't think I was that smart. I was just trying to do the job. But I don't think, I would have been just a nice run-of-the-mill guy. And what she did is take me to a place, and my wife and I both know this, that we came to a place that we could never have dreamt we could have got to. Unimaginable, impossible to have dreamt. Had she not taken us there. It's not shaykh. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be standing here. So I want to suggest a chassidish avot for understanding this pasuk. Rabus Raos Tzadik. It's true. Hashem Tzadik Yivchen, says the Medrash. 2 places. Hashem tests his tzaddikim. There's a long Medrash explaining different ways he tests us. But the fact is Hashem Tzadik Yivchen. He tests his tzaddikim. Umi kulam. And from within those rows, he saves us. He saves us. He makes us who we are. He forces us to refine ourselves, to grow, to develop, to become someone we could never have been. Umi kulam. And from within every one of them, he brought out the potential that saved us and brought us to a place that we could never have been. I feel deeply indebted to all my children for all the nisyonis that we've gone through, for making us who we are. We, sitting here, have to live with this machshava. We have to see it and believe it and feel it. Because this isn't about, just surviving the parsha. That's such a limited and foolish way of looking at it. It's such a waste, Rabbi Say. These parshas take us to a place, perhaps down there beneath the king's palace, where we can climb boys nitzas that we would never have known were down there. And be mashlim our neshamas in a way we would never have known. They needed that hashlama. And when we see this, Rabbi say, we're free. You freed yourself. You let go. You're in a different place. Your spirit soars. You find peace and happiness. You find meaning and purpose. And most of all, you reconnect with deep love for your children who deserve it most. We had them. We had them. We brought them into this world, and they deserve unconditional love from us. It is their birthright. Thank you, all of you, for giving me the chance to be who I am, for challenging me and testing me. You've taken me and you've taken my wife, the two of us, to a place that we never dreamt we could have got to. And we are deeply, deeply indebted to everyone here. Thank you so much.